He humiliated me in front of the whole office. But when I returned as his new boss, he couldn't even meet my eyes. The city skyline shimmered like glass, and fire the morning I lost everything. New York had that deceptive calm before chaos, the kind where the streets seemed too perfect, the air too clear. I remember standing outside the revolving doors of Horizon Logistics, clutching my coffee like it could somehow hold my courage together. I had worked there for 6 years. 6 years of 14-hour days, client calls that bled into midnight, and weekends spent buried in spreadsheets while everyone else lived their lives. And somehow, even with all that, I felt invisible. But I wasn't naive. I knew what corporate life was. You could be the backbone of a company, and still, if someone higher up decided they didn't like you, your chair would be empty by morning. That someone for me was Mark Ellison. Mark had been my boss for just over a year. He came in like a storm, slick suits, expensive cologne, and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. The kind of man who made promises with one hand and pulled strings with the other. He'd charm a client in the morning and crush an employee's confidence by lunch. The first time we met, I knew he didn't like me. Maybe it was because I didn't flirt back. Or because I corrected him during a board meeting when he misquoted a revenue figure I'd calculated. He didn't say anything that day, but I saw it in his jaw, the faint tightening of a man who didn't like being challenged. From that moment on, I became his target. Every email I sent was scrutinized. Every report questioned. He'd smile while pointing out mistakes that weren't there, just to watch me explain myself in front of others. He wanted me small, manageable, but I wasn't built to bow down. That Friday started like any other, an early subway ride, earbuds in, city flashing by. My playlist was the same one I used to calm my nerves before big meetings. It had become a ritual, a reminder that I was strong, capable, and not the kind of woman who broke under pressure. By 8:30, I was at my desk, reviewing numbers from the Pacific Freight Division. Something about the expenditures hadn't been sitting right. The numbers were too neat, too consistent for a market that fluctuated weekly. I'd flagged it in 3 separate reports, but Mark had ignored every one of them. Around 9 o'clock, my colleague Lena rolled her chair beside mine. "You heard the news?" she whispered. I looked up from my screen. "What news?" "They're making budget cuts. People from HR have been in meetings all morning." My stomach tightened, but I forced a smile. "We're always making cuts. It's New York. No one's job is ever safe." She shrugged. "Still, you might want to be careful. Mark's been meeting with upper management since yesterday." That sent a small ripple of unease down my spine. Still, I brushed it off. My numbers were solid. My record is spotless. If anything, I was the one catching others' mistakes. By noon, the office buzz had changed. People were whispering more than usual, eyes darting toward the glass-paneled conference rooms. And then my phone pinged, a meeting invite. From Mark Ellison, subject, quick chat, HR room 2B time, 12:30 p.m. The air in my lungs froze. You don't get called to HR at lunchtime for a quick chat. Lena saw the look on my face. "Delaney, is that?" "Yeah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She reached out, touched my arm. "You're gonna be fine. You're the best one here." I smiled, but we both knew how little that mattered. When I entered HR room 2B, the blinds were half drawn. The light slanted across the glass table like a blade. Mark was there, of course, leaning casually against the wall, tie loosened, looking more like he was waiting for a drink than firing someone. Beside him sat Diana, the HR manager, expression rehearsed into corporate empathy. "Delaney," Mark greeted, flashing that smile I'd come to despise. "Thanks for coming." I sat down, the room already feeling too small. "What's this about?" Diana shifted in her chair. "We've been reviewing some departmental budgets, and unfortunately, due to recent restructuring, your position is being eliminated." There it was. The sentence that kills a career. I felt the air rush from my lungs, but I forced myself to stay still. "Eliminated," I repeated, my voice even. "That's interesting, considering I just finalized next quarter's expansion proposal." Mark's smirk widened. Yes, well, sometimes performance doesn't align with a company's new direction. Performance. The same performance that had landed me 2 Employee of the Year awards. The same one that had saved the company a client worth $3 million last spring. I looked him dead in the eye. This isn't about performance. He tilted his head slightly. Careful, Delaney. Let's not make this uncomfortable. He wanted me to break.
To cry. To beg.
Instead, I stood up, slow and steady. You're right, Mark. Let's not make this uncomfortable. Send my termination in writing. He laughed. Actually, I laughed. That cold, arrogant sound that echoed through my bones. And that's when I made the mistake of looking around. Through the glass wall, I saw them, my coworkers, watching, pretending to type, but really just waiting to see how I'd react. For a moment, I felt small, disposable, like all those years of loyalty meant nothing. I gathered my things quietly, a pen, a framed photo, a coffee mug for my first promotion. Each object felt heavier than it should. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. In my drawer sat a small USB drive, my personal backup. Not of company secrets, but of every report I'd written, every financial irregularity I'd flagged, every proof Mark had ignored. I slipped it into my pocket. The subway ride home was a blur. The hum of the tracks mixed with the replay of Mark's laugh in my head. I'd been fired before, early in my 20s, when I was still figuring out who I was. But this was different. This wasn't a failure. This was betrayal. I sat by the window, city lights flashing past like broken promises. I told myself not to cry, but the tears came anyway, hot and silent. When I got home, I dropped my box on the counter and collapsed into the couch. The apartment felt emptier than usual. I turned on the lamp, stared at my reflection in the darkened TV screen. My mascara had smudged. My eyes looked hollow. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I opened my laptop and plugged in the USB. What I found wasn't just evidence, it was a trail. Hidden payments, altered invoices, client accounts being billed twice, all routed through dummy vendors that didn't exist. The signatures? All authorized by Mark Ellison. I stared at the screen, numb. He hadn't just sabotaged me. He'd been embezzling money under everyone's noses. And the reports I'd sent up the chain were his biggest threat. That's why he fired me. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the documents. For hours, I pieced together months of deceit, realizing that every late night I'd spent working had unknowingly kept his scheme alive. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. If he thought he'd buried me, he hadn't seen the kind of woman I really was. He wanted silence. But I was done being quiet. I didn't know how, or when, but Mark Ellison was going to regret underestimating me. Outside, dawn broke over the skyline, painting the skyscrapers gold. The city was waking up, unaware that somewhere inside one of those towers, a war had quietly begun. And I wasn't going to stop until I won. The week after I was fired stretched like an endless winter. Time lost its rhythm. Mornings felt like nights, and nights were just hours of staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in that glass-walled room. Mark Ellison's laugh haunted me. That smug tilt of his head, the way he smoothed his tie like the world bent in his favor, it looped in my mind until I started to hate my own reflection for letting him see me walk away quietly. By the third day, the shock had dulled into something colder, focus. I woke up, brewed coffee, and sat at my dining table with my laptop. The city outside buzzed with the rhythm of people chasing their ambitions, people like I used to be. But I wasn't chasing anymore. I was plotting. The documents on my USB drive were my lifeline. I had spent hours building a timeline, cross-referencing altered invoices, ghost vendors, duplicate payments. Every breadcrumb pointed back to Mark. It wasn't enough to know he was guilty. I needed to prove it. And not just to HR, to the people who could destroy his career the way he'd tried to destroy mine. Still, there was one problem. I no longer had access to Horizon's internal systems. The servers, the email logs, the approval chains, all locked behind digital walls. I knew who could help. Lena. She'd been my closest friend at the office, though friend was a dangerous word in corporate circles. Loyalty was a currency few could afford. I hesitated before calling her. When she finally answered, her voice was quiet. Delaney? Oh my God. I've been wanting to call, but they told us not to contact you. I figured, I said. Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to know one thing. Is Mark still handling the freight accounts?
Yes.
Why? Because I think he's stealing from them. Silence. Then a whisper. Delaney, that's serious. I know. I have proof. I just need someone still inside who can verify a few things. There was a long pause. I could almost hear her heart beating through the line. Finally, she sighed. Text me what you need. I'll see what I can do. For the next 2 nights, I barely slept. Lena sent encrypted screenshots from her personal phone, small pieces of data that, when combined with my reports, revealed something staggering. Over $3.4 million had been funneled through dummy companies in less than 8 months. Every transaction was signed off by Mark Ellison. I knew then that I was sitting on a bomb, but I didn't want to just expose him. I wanted him to lose what he valued most: power. 3 days later, while I was sorting through files, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Is this Delaney Reed? Yes, who's calling? This is Rachel Carrington. You may not know me, but I believe you worked at Horizon Logistics? For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Rachel Carrington, the founder's daughter. The woman whose name was printed on every annual report but who hadn't been publicly active in years. I did, I replied cautiously. Until last week. I'm aware, she said, her tone calm but clipped. I've been reviewing internal audit documents, and your name keeps appearing in the reports. Specifically the flagged discrepancies in the freight division.
My throat went dry.
So she'd seen my work. I was told those concerns were dismissed, I said carefully. By Mr. Ellison, yes. Which is precisely why I'm calling you. Her voice carried authority, not arrogance, but clarity. She asked to meet. No assistants, no PR handlers, no vague emails. Just a quiet meeting at a small coffee shop near Bryant Park. That morning, New York looked different. The air was sharp, the sky silver with winter light. I wore the only formal outfit I hadn't packed away: navy blazer, white blouse, dark jeans. The kind of neutral armor a woman wears when she doesn't know if she's walking into war or opportunity. Rachel Carrington was already there when I arrived, early 30s, polished yet unpretentious, dressed in a cream coat and minimal jewelry. She stood as I approached and offered a hand. Delaney, thank you for coming. Of course, I said, shaking it. I'll admit, I wasn't expecting your call. We sat. She didn't waste time on small talk. I'll be blunt, she said. I've been reviewing Horizon's last 2 quarterly audits, and what I'm seeing doesn't align with the reports you submitted. Your financial analyses were precise, yet none of your flagged issues were investigated. Instead, shortly after your final submission, you were terminated. Her eyes met mine, steady, calculating. That timing feels intentional. It was, I said softly. Mark Ellison's been covering his tracks. I have data that connects him to fraudulent vendor accounts. Rachel leaned forward. Can you prove it? I pulled out the USB drive, placing it between us like a loaded gun. I already have. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she smiled, faint but knowing. You're thorough, she said. I respect that. For the next hour, I walked her through everything: the duplicate billing, the hidden accounts, the falsified signatures. She asked sharp, precise questions, the kind only someone with insider understanding could pose. When we finished, she sat back, silent. Then she said quietly, my father trusted Mark Ellison more than anyone. When he passed, I stepped back from the company because I couldn't bear to watch it lose its integrity. But this, she gestured toward the USB, this is beyond negligence. It's corruption. Her voice hardened. And it ends now. She stood, placed a card on the table, and looked me in the eye. I'm reinstating my ownership position. When I do, I'll need people I can trust, people who actually care about the company's foundation. You'll hear from me soon. Then she left.
Just like that.
No promises, no details.
Just certainty.
The following week felt like the eye of a storm, calm, but pulsing with something inevitable. Lena texted me updates from inside. Mark's nervous. The board called an emergency audit. Another. He's blaming IT for the leaks. Acting desperate. By Thursday, rumors were swirling across industry networks. Horizon Logistics under internal investigation. I watched it unfold online. Headlines, whispers, LinkedIn chatter. Then late Friday night, my phone buzzed again. This time, the number was an unknown. Rachel Carrington. Delaney, it's done. I've acquired controlling shares from 2 board members. Effective Monday, I'll be stepping in as CEO. I froze. You are right about everything, she continued. Mark's embezzlement trail is undeniable. Legal will handle the rest. But more importantly, I want you back. My chest tightened. Rachel, Not as an analyst, she interrupted. As operations director. I need someone who knows the ground, not just the boardroom. You built the backbone of that company, Delaney. It's time you got credit for it. The silence between us hummed with disbelief. 2 weeks ago, I'd been humiliated and discarded. Now, the very company that threw me away wanted me back, to lead. Rachel's final words echoed like thunder before she hung up. Oh, and Mark? He'll be reporting directly to you until his final termination. That weekend, I didn't celebrate. I cleaned my apartment, organized my files, and took long walks through the city. I wanted to be clear-headed when I walked through those glass doors again. Monday morning came bright and cold. I stood outside Horizon's building, the same place I'd left with a box in my hands. This time, I carried nothing but confidence. The receptionist looked startled when she saw me. Ms. Reed, you're back. I smiled. You could say that. She gestured toward the conference room. They're waiting for you. Inside, Rachel stood at the head of the table, sharp and composed. Beside her were 2 board members and a few department heads. And then, at the far end, sat Mark Ellison. His expression flickered from confusion to disbelief to something close to fear. Rachel began. Everyone, this is Delaney Reed, Horizon's new operations director. Effective immediately. A stunned silence fell over the room. Mark blinked, his jaw tightening. Wait, what? Rachel didn't even look at him. You'll remain temporarily to assist in the transition. After that, we'll discuss your exit plan. He tried to protest, but Rachel's tone was final. The decision's not up for debate. And for the first time since that fateful Friday, I smiled. Not out of arrogance, but peace. Because justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't need to shout. It just needs to walk back through the door, taller, calmer, and stronger than before. The elevator ride to the 31st floor felt strangely weightless. 2 weeks ago, this same elevator had carried me down in silence, cardboard box in hand, my reflection blurred by tears and fluorescent light. Now, the reflection staring back at me wasn't broken anymore. It was composed, centered, sharp. The stainless steel doors parted with a soft chime. Horizon Logistics looked the same as always. Pristine floors, muted walls, the faint scent of citrus from the morning cleaning crew. Yet something felt different. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the way people stopped talking when I walked by. Good morning, Ms. Reed, the receptionist stammered, almost standing at attention. I smiled politely. Morning, Jenna. It was odd, hearing Ms. Reed again, like I had stepped into a new version of myself, one that had always existed but had been forced to wait for her moment. I entered my new office, the same corner suite Mark Ellison used to occupy. The skyline stretched out before me, glittering in the sunlight. A quiet kind of power. On the desk sat a sleek black folder with the company's seal embossed in gold. A note was attached, written in Rachel Carrington's elegant handwriting. Welcome back, Delaney. The city remembers those who rise with grace.
R.
I allowed myself a small smile. Rachel was many things: smart, strategic, and, above all, loyal to truth. I opened the folder. Inside were the final audit results. The legal department had confirmed everything: the dummy vendors, the falsified authorizations, the double-billed clients. The total amount siphoned under Mark's supervision was $3.4 million. He was finished. At 10 a.m., there was a knock on the door. "Come in," I said. Mark Ellison walked in, looking nothing like the man who once ruled this floor. His suit was wrinkled, his hair slightly disheveled, the usual smug grin gone. "Delaney," he began, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. "Congratulations, I heard about the—" "Sit down, Mark." He froze. For a second, I could see the flicker of disbelief in his eyes. The realization that he was no longer in control. Slowly, he took a seat opposite my desk. I folded my hands, letting the silence stretch. Power doesn't always come from shouting. Sometimes it's in the quiet waiting. "I assume you know why you're here," I said evenly. He cleared his throat. "Rachel mentioned something about restructuring." "Let's not insult each other's intelligence," I interrupted. "You know exactly why you're here." I slid a file across the desk. "That's the internal audit. It covers the last 8 months of your department's financial activity. Every payment, every authorization, every mistake." He hesitated before opening it. As his eyes scanned the pages, his color drained. I don't know what this is supposed to." "Don't," I said, voice low but firm. "Don't lie. Not again." He looked up, his confidence unraveling. "Delaney, listen, I didn't mean for—" "For what?" I cut in. "To fire the one person who might have exposed you sooner? To humiliate me in front of the entire office while you were stealing from the company." His mouth opened, but no words came. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I could have gone to the authorities directly," I said. "I could have leaked everything to the press. But I didn't. Do you know why?" He swallowed hard. "Because you wanted a deal?" I leaned forward, meeting his eyes.
"No."
"Because I wanted you to see what it feels like to lose everything, piece by piece. Just like you made me." Silence. The city outside seemed to hum with electricity, as if it, too, was listening. "I'm giving you one chance," I continued. "Resign quietly. Effective immediately. You'll submit a formal apology for your mismanagement and transfer full cooperation to the legal team. In exchange, Horizon won't pursue criminal charges." His shoulders sagged. "You can't." "I can," I said. "And I already have board approval." For the first time, I saw it, fear. Real human fear behind his eyes. He wasn't angry anymore. He was defeated. "You think this makes you better than me?" he whispered. I stood, my voice steady as I looked down at him. "No, Mark. It makes me smarter than you." He didn't argue again. Just stared at the audit file, hands trembling slightly. When he finally left, he didn't look back. After he was gone, I stood by the window, watching the traffic move like veins through the city. The sun had shifted, brighter now, almost golden. I exhaled, slow and deep. The war was over. Rachel came by later that afternoon, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling faintly. "So," she said, "how'd it go?" "He resigned," I replied. No fight left in him. "Good." She walked in, setting a small stack of folders on my desk. "Legal will take care of the rest. You handled this exactly the way I hoped you would." I smiled softly. "You mean quietly?" Rachel chuckled. "Precisely. The loudest revenge is silence that echoes." For a moment, we stood there, two women who'd rebuilt what men like Mark had tried to destroy. Before she left, she paused at the door. "By the way," she said, "there's a board meeting next week. I want you there. You've earned your place at that table." After she left, I sank into my chair, letting the reality settle. I had my life back, my career, my dignity. But more than that, I had closure. That evening, the office emptied out one by one. I stayed late, watching the city glow against the night. The lights of Manhattan shimmered like a constellation of second chances. A message notification blinked on my screen. From Mark Ellison, subject: "Goodbye." I hesitated before opening it. "Delaney, I know you won't believe me, but I never hated you. I just resented how much better you were at everything. I thought pushing you out would make me feel powerful. It didn't. It just showed me what I've always feared, that some people earn respect, while others demand it and never get it. Take care of Horizon. You're the right one to lead it.
Mark.
I sat there for a while, reading the message again and again. Then I deleted it, because some words don't deserve a reply. A week later, at the board meeting, Rachel introduced me formally as Director of Operations. Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. My name appeared on the company website under Executive Team. It felt surreal, like closing a book I'd once thought would end in tragedy. During the reception afterward, Lena found me near the elevator. "You did it," she said, grinning. "You actually did it." I laughed softly. "No, Lena. We did it. You helped me find the truth." She hugged me tight. "You're a legend, Delaney. They'll be talking about this for years." Maybe they would. Maybe not. But I didn't care about fame. I cared about justice. That night, as I walked home through the streets of New York, the air was cool and alive with the scent of rain. My heels clicked softly against the pavement, each step echoing with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The city that once felt indifferent now felt like it was on my side, watching, approving, whispering its own kind of applause. When I reached my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window. The skyline stretched endlessly before me, proof that sometimes, even in a city built on competition and power plays, truth still found a way to rise. I thought about Mark one last time, about that laugh, that arrogance. And then, quietly, I let it go. Because the best revenge isn't anger. It's evolution. The next morning, my inbox was flooded with congratulations. Industry magazines wanted interviews. Recruiters sent offers. But I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing. To every woman who's ever been silenced, doubted, or dismissed, remember this. They can take your job, your title, your desk, but they can never take your worth. I hit save. And as the morning sun poured into my office at Horizon Logistics, I finally smiled. Not the polite smile of a corporate worker trying to survive, but the quiet, powerful one of a woman who had won. Not because she sought revenge, but because she became unstoppable.